Good evening, Fremont Community Church. How are we doing today? I pray everybody's had a pretty good day. I know the ladies have got some stuff going on tonight, so I'm hoping they're having a great night. They got the Mary and Martha meeting tonight, and had the honor of cooking for them again. I kind of like doing that. Ladies are important in our lives. I think we should make them feel special whenever we can. Um, we're going to continue our series on Proverbs tonight. A little heads up, I'm debating on changing our direction a little bit in the next week or so, but I will keep you informed as we go here. Tonight we're going to be a little bit short on our list. We're going to do something a little bit shorter instead of blow through the whole chapter of Proverbs and repeat things that we've talked about 65 different times. We're going to do something called wisdom on repeat. Because Proverbs 8, 4, and 5 is all we're going to focus about. It's going to talk about wisdom, and this book continuously talks about wisdom. So I decided to call this one Wisdom on Repeat. I talked with a church consultant recently. I'm always looking for ways to help our church do better, and he said something it said something that I worked with. He said, I've said the same thing in different ways 100 different times. Now, having dealt with consultants in teaching, having dealt with consultants when I was in the military, having dealt with consultants in my personal life, the playbook that they go by often looks pretty similar. It really does. Okay, one's got a God aspect where education really doesn't, but the mechanics of how that playbook work are pretty similar for the most part. It doesn't mean they're immovable, but it's just a way to say when I talk to these people, they say some things I've seen 100 times, and it's okay. I'm always looking for a better way, and if I hear something different, that's great. But those guys have just about heard it all, and if you've been to a few of these consultants, they've about heard it all. So these consultants will end up saying the same thing 100 different ways, time and time again. And I'm really kind of glad they do, because I kind of have to hear things a few times before they stick sometimes. I don't know if you do or not, but personally, I can be a little thick-headed. It's amazing. I can learn so fast, but you got to say things a few times for me to get them sometimes. It's weird. Because once, typically for me, just doesn't really work. It doesn't. Let me get my mouse. My mouse just went crazy on me. Hold on a sec. There we go. Don't do that to me, guys. Okay, so like I said, it just takes a while for things to get through to me. And believe it or not, the Lord does this to us as well. He really does. He calls over and over. He tells us very similar things in different ways, sometimes hundreds of times, because it's stuff that we need to hear. So when you read Proverbs 8, 4, and 5, listen to this for a minute. To you, O people, I call out. I raise my voice to all mankind. You who are simple, gain prudence. You who are foolish, set your hearts on it. See, the Lord wants us, and I hope you're understanding this going through Proverbs, because we keep talking about wisdom. And if God keeps talking about it, as a teacher, if I kept mentioning things, I wanted you to learn them. A running joke I run, if I say it 3 times, it's on the test. So if God chooses to repeat it over and over and over, He intends for us to get it. He wants us to seek wisdom. The cool thing is that He offers it freely. We don't really have to do anything special to gain it. Because if you really paid attention to what I read today, wisdom is personified. Wisdom has this tendency to call out on the streets, and it announces its presence. It really will, if you really think about that for a minute. But this call isn't anger. It's a warm invitation to anyone who will listen. Because the call to obtain wisdom is an offering, it's a gift. And the Lord desires to give his children this gift. He wants to give us wisdom. And the Lord offers this first gift to the simple. Now, if you look at the Hebrew word, underline the word we read translated as simple. It means people that are naive or easily persuaded. There's no insult to this simple here. It's people that are easily persuaded or naive. These aren't simple people. They just need interaction with wisdom. Ironically, when we're naive, when we come to God as a child, when Jesus said, "Come to me as one of these," with the children, we are in a good position to gain wisdom from the Lord. And it's not just because we need it, but because we will absorb it in the teachings that we gain. Because believe it or not, we are in a sense extraordinarily flexible. We are. When we gain the Lord's wisdom, we also gain prudence, or the ability to be careful or cautious, or knowing when something is not wise or not a good idea. And again, there's no morality associated with this word. The word prudence means really we'll be able to mentally perceive a situation and act with discretion. Because wise people not only can discern the situation, they can not only figure out the situation, they know how to behave in that moment so that they don't make a misstep, so they don't fall victim to something that's not meant for them. Now, the second part of this invitation to wisdom extends to those who are foolish. Now, when we read the English word for fool or foolish in the Bible, we are reading any one of several words that could mean fool in English. Unlike the simple above, the way we translate it above, foolish does have moral overtones. There is a morality to foolishness. Because a fool is not just ignorant to wisdom or unable to follow the instructions of wisdom. The fool intentionally rebels against that wisdom. The heart of a fool is set against wisdom. This is why the Proverbs counsel the fool to set their heart to wisdom. There's this attitude of change that has to happen in our lives before we're able to receive that wisdom. There has to be an attitude change in that fool's life before he can even receive this wisdom. Because you can teach a fool all you want, and they're going to reject what you're saying. In the World Harvest World, there's a man named Elder Canfield who was one of Rod Parsley's closest friends and confidants. And he wrote a book about sheep and goats. And he said, sheep will follow. You may have to train them, but they'll follow. But goats you can't do anything with. You can't train a goat. A fool is no better than that goat that's mentioned in that pig, or to that saying. So to tempt it is like throwing pearls to pigs, is what it says here. It's pointless, because if they're not willing to change the attitude, they'll never accept the wisdom. They'll never receive the wisdom. So if we set our hearts to actively against wisdom, if we set our sights against everything that wisdom entails, the Bible itself, God calls us a fool. And if that's us, if that's me, or if that's you, we got something we got to do about it. We got to humble ourselves. We better turn our heart to the Lord's wisdom. This is a lesson I wish I had learned a long time ago. I didn't learn it young. I learned it older. And if you think about it, it's quite a gift. If you really think about this, it's a gift to know that the Lord wants to give us wisdom. The Lord doesn't want us walking through life, bouncing into one situation or another that could easily have been avoided if we'd had a little bit of that wisdom. And He doesn't want us unarmed to face situations that are out of our control. Sometimes life just happens, but with wisdom, you know how to deal with that. Instead, He shouts. He shouts His offer to find wisdom when we turn our hearts and heads to Him. The wisdom is there for the taking. You've got to turn your heart to Him and get in that word, get in this word right here, and accept the wisdom that there is in here for you. Let's try starting that today. I told you this was going to be a short one. I got a challenge for you. My challenge for you is to read a chapter of Proverbs every day this week. We've been through 1 through 8. Read 9 through 16. Take in or ingest that wisdom of the Lord through His inspired words, through the words inspired by God. And then after you've taken in those words, put them into practice in your own life. You'll be amazed. Turn your heart and your head to the Lord, and let's walk in His light and His life before, and walk our life before a world that is desperate need of seeing a more excellent way of living. Yeah, you're going to read, if you read Proverbs, you've seen, we're going to see the same thing in a lot of different ways. We've read about wisdom, we've talked about purity, and it seems like they just kind of change how He says it, but He's saying the same thing. I'm assuming He wants us to take this stuff in. But mind you, this is not mindless repetition. It's not mindless. It's mindful to understand that we need to hear some things more than once to really learn how to do it. I take it as this. I've worked with teenagers, and they like to quit real easy. So in my engineering class, I had football players. I love my football players, but some of them weren't engineers. And they would try something once, and it wouldn't work, and they'd want to quit. Well, I'm not very good at this, was their argument, or I stink at this, or they used other words that aren't quite church worthy. And I said, "You play football, right?" And he says, "Yeah." "Did you catch the ball the minute you started playing? You're a receiver. Could you catch when you first started playing? Could you run the routes perfectly when you first started playing?" He's like, "No, I had to learn that." I said, "What makes you think anything in this class is the same way? You have to try again." My friends, this walk of faith, gaining this wisdom, we're not going to be good at it right away. I encourage you, dig in. Take a week and just read a chapter of Proverbs a day. It's going to take you 10 minutes to read a chapter. There's 165 hours in a week, roughly. I don't think 10 minutes is too much to ask to spend a little time in God's Word. And I challenge you to do it. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to keep plugging through Proverbs, but our lessons may go in a slightly different direction. I'm still praying about that. You guys have a blessed night. I hope this blesses someone. Enjoy your evening and take care, my friends.